I wasn't kicked out. I was discarded. My parents looked me dead in the eye and called me useless. Told me I was dead weight. Then they booted me out like yesterday's garbage. Fast forward 5 years, and suddenly I'm useful again. Now that my father's got cancer, they want their son back. The same one. They didn't care if he lived or died. Funny how tragedy makes people rewrite history. Let's call me Nate. I'm 23, living alone in a decent apartment that I pay for myself. No roommates, no handouts, and definitely no calls home. Mostly because there's no one there I'd want to talk to. Not after what they did. Let me take you back to the exact moment I realized family doesn't always mean unconditional love. It can also mean the people most likely to stab you in the back with a steak knife and smile while doing it. It started the summer I turned 18. Most people get cake, presents, and maybe a crappy car with a dent in the side. Me? I got a lecture, an eviction, and a kick to whatever dignity I had left. I guess I should have seen it coming, but when you grow up in dysfunction, chaos feels normal. My dad always had this vibe like I owed him something just for existing. Like the fact that he didn't abandon me at birth meant I needed to pay rent in gratitude. He was the type to sit on the couch all Sunday and bark orders at everyone like he was the CEO of the house. Except he didn't bring in CEO money. More like minimum wage and maximum complaints. My mom. A permanent passenger in his ride-or-die delusion. She'd nod along with whatever he said, even when it was clear he was full of crap. Especially when it came to me. I was the lazy disappointment, the what did we do wrong with him case study. My little sister, Katie, on the other hand, could punch a nun and still be the golden child. Not that I blame her. She was smart enough to keep her head down. The day it all went down, Dad sat me down like he was giving me a promotion or something. He had that smug, almost excited energy that made my stomach twist before he even opened his mouth. We've decided it's time for you to move on, he said, like I was being laid off from a job I didn't apply for. You're 18. You're a man now. Time to get out in the world and make something of yourself. Funny, considering they never taught me how to balance a checkbook, let alone survive on my own. My part-time job at a gas station barely covered gas. I had no car, no savings, no real plan. But hey, I was a man now apparently. When I asked where I was supposed to go, my dad just shrugged. That's not our problem anymore, Nate. You've had enough chances to step up. You didn't. So figure it out. Then my mom chimed in, all fake sympathy and tired eyes. This is for your own good, honey. You need to learn responsibility. Right. Because kicking your kid out with zero support screams responsibility. They gave me a day to pack. One day, I had a duffel bag, a broken laptop, and the kind of rage that ages you overnight. Katie slipped me $100 and whispered, I'm sorry, when no one was looking. I didn't blame her for not doing more. She was 15 and already smarter than all of us. I spent the first 2 nights crashing in my coworker's garage. It smelled like oil and cat piss, but at least it had a roof. I worked double shifts, lied about my address, and scraped together enough cash to rent a closet-sized studio with a busted heater and a leak in the ceiling. I ate more ramen than I care to admit. Showered at the gym. Slept in my shoes sometimes, just in case I had to leave fast. And while all this was happening, my parents, they carried on like I never existed. Not a single call. No birthday text. No, how are you holding up? Nothing. Just silence. The kind of silence that tells you exactly how much you mattered. For a long time, that silence broke me. I'd wake up and wonder what I did that was so unforgivable. Was I really that useless? That disappointing? That disposable? It festered, built up like rot under my skin, until I didn't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. But something weird happened when you hit rock bottom and no one's there to catch you. You start catching yourself. You get tired of crying in public bathrooms and pretending you're fine when your stomach's been empty for 18 hours. You grow up, not because you're ready, but because no one's coming to save you. People talk about starting over like it's some cute inspirational montage in a movie. Wake up at 6 a.m., jog to motivational music, drink a kale smoothie, conquer the world before lunch. Yeah, no, that's not how it goes when you start with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and the emotional support of a brick wall. The first few months after I got kicked out were nothing short of hell. I was too proud to beg, too broke to afford pride, and too pissed off to go crawling back. Not that they would have let me in anyway. The only thing my parents were good at was pretending I didn't exist. They nailed that part. I took any shift I could at the gas station, working late nights that bled into early mornings. I learned how to nap in 15-minute bursts between shifts and how to shower with a bottle of water when the gym closed early. There's something real humbling about brushing your teeth behind a dumpster because the public bathroom lock is busted. I didn't have dreams during that time, just survival plans. My meals were mostly gas station sandwiches and clearance ramen, the kind that had expired 2 weeks ago but still looked kind of edible. I once ate a half-frozen burrito using a keychain screwdriver as a fork. That was the culinary low point of my life. And yet, somewhere in that chaos, something clicked. It happened around the time I found a cracked tablet in a dumpster behind the strip mall. Took it home, charged it with a busted cord I Frankensteined together from 2 broken phone chargers, and realized it still worked. Sluggish, barely holding a charge, but it worked. That tablet became my lifeline. I used free Wi-Fi from a nearby Starbucks parking lot to start learning how to code. Nothing fancy, just free lessons, forums, and Reddit threads. I spent nights reading documentation like it was a thriller novel, piecing together logic and syntax like someone defusing a bomb. At first, I sucked. Bad. But I kept going. Because sucking at something is the first step to being sorta good at something, right? 2 years in, I was decent enough to start picking up random freelance gigs. Little things. Fixing someone's website, making small scripts, helping some guy in Florida automate his spreadsheets for $50. The pay was trash, but it was money I earned without wearing a name tag or scrubbing spilled Slurpee off the floor. Eventually, I found a client who actually gave a damn. He liked my work, recommended me to someone else, and that someone paid me triple what I used to make in a week. I still remember getting that PayPal notification while sitting on the floor of my tiny apartment, eating cereal with a measuring cup because I didn't own real bowls. I laughed so hard I choked on a cornflake. That gig snowballed into more. I built a portfolio, got serious, and started charging what I was worth. I upgraded my gear piece by piece. First a used laptop, then a new one, then an actual desk. The apartment improved too. Moved out of the rat hole and into a 1-bedroom that didn't smell like feet and mold. Got a mattress that didn't sit directly on the floor. Bought a microwave. Real adulting. But even as things got better, I never really celebrated. Not because I wasn't proud. I was. But because that old voice in my head, my dad's voice, was always there. You're not cut out for anything real. You'll end up living off scraps. You're a burden. It stuck with me longer than I care to admit. Like a virus, you think you've beaten until it flares up again out of nowhere. I'd land a great gig, and that voice would still whisper, "Don't get comfortable." I didn't talk about my past with anyone. My story was just, parents died when I was a kid, or don't really have family. It was easier that way. Cleaner. No awkward silences. No pity stares. No explaining why I wasn't invited to Thanksgiving or why I flinched when someone said, "Your folks must be proud." Then came she, Emily. I met her at a shared co-working space when I was trying to look professional for a new client. She was a designer, sharp and sarcastic, with a coffee addiction that could kill a horse. She caught me cursing at my screen one day and asked if I needed backup. I told her I needed an exorcism for my JavaScript demons. We clicked. Not in the rom-com, love at first sight way, but in the slow burn, you're just as weird and broken as I am kind of way. She didn't pry about my past, didn't ask why I looked like I didn't trust compliments. She just showed up. Again and again. For the first time, I started thinking about a future that wasn't just about escaping the past. I thought about stability. About maybe having someone in my corner permanently. Someone who knew me now, not as the failure my parents raised, but as the person I clawed my way into becoming. By the time I hit 23, I had savings. A decent apartment. A growing business. A routine that didn't involve dodging landlords or rationing toilet paper. I even had a coffee machine. A fancy one. The kind my mom would have called wasteful while sipping her 3rd glass of boxed wine. I still thought about them sometimes. Usually late at night, when the city was quiet and I had no one to prove anything to. Not in a nostalgic way. More like a forensic examination. How did 2 people raise me and still never really see me? How do you throw away your own son like he's a broken appliance? But I never expected them to come back. I figured they'd go to their graves pretending I never existed. That was fine by me. So when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize, and I picked up to hear my mother's voice, warm, familiar, and just as manipulative as ever, I nearly dropped the damn thing. "Nate," she said, like we'd just spoken yesterday. "We need to talk. It's about your father." Right then, something in me went cold. Of course. Not "how have you been?" Not "we were wrong." Just, "we need you." After 5 years of radio silence, abandonment, and pretending I was dead weight, they remembered I existed because now they needed something from me. That was the moment I knew I had the upper hand. They didn't want their son back. They wanted a life raft. But I wasn't the same scared kid who begged them to reconsider. I had power now, and I was going to make damn sure they felt it. They didn't show up with flowers or apologies. That would have been too human, too honest. Instead, they showed up with tragedy, their favorite manipulation tool. 2 days after the call, they came to my apartment. Yeah, they showed up. In person. No warning, no invitation, no heads up. Just 2 familiar figures standing in the hallway of my building like ghosts who forgot they were dead. I opened the door and saw them both. My dad, thinner and paler than I remembered, leaning on a cane he probably hated, and my mom, holding a Tupperware container like that was going to bridge 5 years of silence. "Hi, Nate," she said softly. Her voice cracked just enough to sound pitiful, but not enough to be sincere. I didn't say anything, just leaned against the doorway and crossed my arms. Dad didn't look at me directly. He was staring down at his shoes like maybe he regretted wearing sandals and socks in public. Or maybe he just didn't want to see the son he dumped come back taller, sharper, and 10 times more put together than he'd ever been. "We wanted to see you," Mom continued. "It's been a while." "Oh, really? Is that what we're calling it?" "A while. Like I was just on vacation, not tossed into the street like a broken lawn chair." She held out the container. "I made your favorite. Lasagna." I didn't move. "You mean the one you said I didn't deserve because I contributed nothing to the family?" "That lasagna." Her smile twitched. She glanced at Dad like she expected him to say something. He didn't. Just stood there, gray-faced and gaunt, like a washed-up version of the man who used to bark insults at me from behind his beer gut. "Can we come in?" she asked finally. I stepped aside, not because I wanted them in my space, but because I wanted them to see what they threw away. They stepped into my apartment like it was a museum, quiet, cautious, uncomfortable. I watched their eyes scan the place. Hardwood floors, clean countertops, a flat-screen TV, framed artwork. It didn't scream rich, but it screamed, "I did fine without you." Mom sat on the edge of the couch like it might bite her. Dad lowered himself slowly into a chair like he was made of glass. It was the first time I saw him look small. He cleared his throat. "I'm sick," he said, like it was a confession. "No kidding," I said, sitting across from them. "Stage 3 colon cancer," Mom added, as if the diagnosis would soften the ice between us. There was a pause. One of those long, awkward silences where someone's waiting for you to cry or say, "I'm so sorry." I didn't. Instead, I said, "And you thought I'd what? Drop everything and forgive you because the guy who kicked me out is dying." Dad flinched. Mom's eyes welled up, but I wasn't buying it. "We know we made mistakes," she said, voice trembling. "We were scared. We thought we were doing what was best." I actually laughed at that one. Loud, bitter, and unfiltered. "You thought abandoning your kid with no money, no plan, and no backup was what? A character-building exercise?" Dad finally looked up. "We didn't think you'd make it." There it was. The truth. They thought I'd fail. They wanted me to. So they could say, "See? We were right. He's a loser." They'd get to be the victims of their own failed parenting experiment. But I didn't fail. And that's why they were back now, eating crow and lasagna in my living room. "We don't have anyone else," Mom said, wiping her eyes. "Katie's away at school. The medical bills are piling up. We're sorry, Nate. We were wrong." Oh, now it's Nate again. Not boy. Not burden. Nate. Like I was a human being this whole time. "I needed a family 5 years ago," I said, standing up. "You gave me a sidewalk and a duffel bag. And now you're here because your world's crumbling and I have something you want." "No," Dad croaked. "We're here because we miss you." I stared at him, trying to decide if he actually believed that. "You don't miss me. You miss what I can do for you. Financial support. Maybe some forgiveness so you can die with a clear conscience. But you don't miss me. You miss the version of me that failed. The one you could pity and control." That hit hard. I could see it on their faces. Then came the public part. Because guess who just happened to stop by during this fun little reunion? Emily. She walked in with 2 iced coffees and froze mid-step when she saw them sitting there like wilted houseplants. "Oh," she said flatly. "Company." I gave her a look and a nod that said go ahead, stay. Mom tried to recover. "Hi there. I'm Nate's mother." Emily didn't flinch. "I know who you are. You're the reason he slept on a mattress in a storage unit for 3 months." My mom blinked like she got slapped. My dad tried to mumble something, but Emily cut him off. "And you're the one who told him he was a waste of space. Funny, you don't look like someone qualified to give life advice." It was glorious. They sat there in stunned silence as Emily walked over and handed me my coffee like nothing had happened. I sipped it slowly. Let the moment marinate. Finally, I turned back to them. "You're not staying here. You want help? There are programs, hospitals, support groups. You'll have to find your way without me, just like I had to." "But we're your parents," Mom said, voice cracking. "No," I said, walking to the door and opening it. "You were my parents." Past tense. They left. Not gracefully. Not with dignity. Just defeated. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. If you asked my parents back then what kind of son they wanted, I'm pretty sure the list would have looked something like this. Obedient, agreeable, successful, but not more than them. Quiet, and, most importantly, dependent. What they got instead was me, loud in my silence, furious in my stillness, and independent in a way that made them uncomfortable. After they left my apartment, I figured that was the end of it. I'd said my piece. They'd had their moment, and now we could all go back to pretending each other didn't exist. But they weren't done yet. A week later, I got a Facebook friend request from my mom. And yes, she was still using the same cringy profile picture from 2012 with Comic Sans over a sunset that read, "Family is forever." Irony really is undefeated. I deleted it. Then I blocked her. That's when the emails started. I didn't even know they had my address. But sure enough, I started getting these guilt trip masterpieces that could have won awards if self-pity was a literary genre. Long, rambling paragraphs about how Dad's treatments were going poorly, how he was suffering, how she couldn't do it alone, how maybe this is God's way of bringing us back together. God didn't kick me out with a trash bag and a sarcastic lecture. You did, Susan. I ignored the emails. All of them. Then one afternoon, I get a call from Katie. That one I answered. She was crying. "They told everyone you abandoned them," she said through tears. "That you refused to help. That you're selfish." The public shaming phase. Classic. I'd been wondering when we'd get there. Apparently, they'd started spinning their own redemption arc around town. The tale of the poor, sick father and the wayward son who never came home. They left out the part where they left me for dead, obviously. So now, according to them, I was the villain, the ungrateful son, the cold-hearted one who turned his back when the family needed him most. Small-town people eat that stuff up like it's gospel. Suddenly, I was getting dirty looks at the grocery store. My barber asked me if things were okay at home. A woman from church, I haven't set foot in a church in years, by the way, sent me a handwritten note about finding it in my heart to forgive. Forgive? You don't forgive people who kick you when you're down. You survive them. But fine. If they wanted a public narrative, I could give them one. So I wrote a letter. Not to them, but to the local newspaper. It was titled, "An Open Letter to the Parents Who Threw Me Away." I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Everyone would know exactly who I was talking about. In it, I laid out everything. How I was kicked out at 18 with no resources. How I lived in garages, gym bathrooms, and eventually climbed my way into a stable life without a cent from them. I described how they didn't call, didn't write, didn't care until they needed something. And then, with absolute precision, I wrote this. Now that my father is sick, they've decided I'm useful again. But I'm not the same boy they abandoned. I'm the man who survived them. And I don't owe my abusers comfort just because life finally turned on them. It went viral. Well, small-town viral, which means everyone read it and nobody talked about anything else for 3 days straight. Suddenly, those dirty looks stopped. People who used to judge me started giving me nods of solidarity. My old manager at the gas station even emailed me saying, "Damn, I had no idea. Proud of you." Katie called again after the article came out. "They're furious," she said. "Dad's been ranting nonstop. Mom said you humiliated them." Good. They wanted a son who'd be quiet, obedient, and easily manipulated. Instead, they got a man who could expose their lies with nothing but a keyboard and 5 years of receipts. But the best part? That letter wasn't revenge. It wasn't even for them. It was for me. It was me finally telling the truth, loudly, and refusing to carry the shame they tried to dump on me like a bag of garbage. It was the moment I officially divorced myself from the idea that blood equals loyalty. A few weeks later, Katie told me Dad's health was tanking fast. The doctors didn't have much hope left. She asked me if I wanted to see him. "I don't know what good it would do," I said. I said everything I needed to say. "I know," she said quietly, "but maybe he needs to hear it." So I went. Not for him. Not for her. For closure. He was in a hospice bed, smaller than I remembered, like a balloon with half the air let out. His eyes were sunken, voice thin. Mom was in the corner, pretending not to hate that I showed up looking healthier, happier, and more successful than both of them combined. "Hey," he said, voice scratchy. "Didn't think you'd come." I almost didn't. He nodded. He knew. "I read your letter," he said after a pause. "Guess I deserved it." "Yeah," I said. "You did." He stared at the ceiling for a while, then looked back at me. "You turned out all right." And that was it. No apologies. No breakthrough. Just an acknowledgement. A weak, half-hearted nod to the truth that I made it without him. I left 20 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye. Just walked out. They wanted a son. They got a man. One they couldn't control. One who didn't beg. One who remembered everything. I didn't go to the funeral. Not out of spite, but because there was nothing left to bury. The man who died in that hospital bed wasn't my father. He was a stranger who happened to share my DNA. The real death happened 5 years ago, when he kicked me out and slammed the door on whatever was left of our relationship. Since then, I've built something real. A life on my own terms. No begging. No guilt. No pretending broken people are owed pieces of me, just because we share a last name. Family isn't blood. It's the people who show up, stay, and give a damn when it counts. And as far as I'm concerned, I already have one.